Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the RIDE hosted webinar around meal benefit applications for child care centers. Today, we will be going through the purpose of a meal benefit application, how participants should complete meal benefit applications, how to determine the eligibility of a meal benefit application, as well as the record-keeping requirements for these documents. This webinar will be recorded and posted to our website under the Recorded Trainings tab. Meal benefit applications are used to determine your organization's enrollment numbers by meal eligibility determination for free, reduced, and paid. It's important to make sure your meal benefit applications for all program participants are complete and current, as this will influence your enrollment numbers and in turn can have a fiscal impact during your organization's CACFP program review that is conducted by RIDE. The enrollment numbers your organization reports to RIDE are then calculated into a blended percentage rate that is used to determine your claim for reimbursement. We will talk further about reporting your enrollment numbers towards the end of this presentation. Above is a representation of where a sponsor would enter enrollment numbers into RIDE's CNP claiming system. The USDA develops and releases meal benefit applications to ensure they meet federal guidelines. Each year, before July 1st, the most current version of this application with instructions, along with a household letter, WIC letter, and CACFP days, meals, and time and care form is released by RIDE to participating sponsors. The meal benefit application that your organization distributes to participants must include both the front and back side. The first page contains the application itself, while the second page provides some guidance and also contains several civil rights requirements. The household letter is created and updated annually by RIDE. This letter informs participants that your organization participates in CACFP, explains the purpose and intent of the meal benefit application, and includes the reduced portion of the income eligibility guidelines. The WIC letter describes the benefits that are available for women, infants, and children if certain criteria are met. All of these documents can be found on the RIDE CACFP homepage under the Documents, Resources, and Links tab and are available in English and Spanish. To begin, let's take a look at the appropriate meal benefit application that your child care center should be using. In the red circles are the different steps of the meal benefit application. We will be going through each step and looking at what information is being asked, what acceptable answers should look like, and how to use the information when making a determination. There are two primary methods that can be used to determine the eligibility of your participants: categorical eligibility and income-based. We will begin going over these in the next slides. First, we will talk about determining meal benefit eligibility. Throughout this presentation, we will refer to two types of determinations your organization will use. The first is called categorical eligibility, which can be determined with or without an application. Categorical eligibility without an application refers to participants who are enrolled in other federal assistance programs that meet the same income guidelines as the CACFP. For these participants, the SNAP letter, which is received by parents stating that children in the household are eligible for free meals during the school year listed, and Head Start determinations both supersede the meal benefit application and does not need to be completed. Categorical eligibility with an application refers to those who are considered either homeless, runaway, migrant, foster children, or who have a SNAP or TANF case number. In these cases, once the categorical eligibility is determined, no other information is needed, such as household size, gross income, and social security number. However, the application will still need to be signed and dated by the adult completing the application. The other method of determining eligibility is used for participants who are not categorically eligible, which we refer to as income-based determinations. The eligibility of these participants is based upon their household size and gross income in comparison to the current income eligibility guidelines. After we go through each step of the meal benefit application, we will explain how to use this method of determination and do some sample calculations together. To begin with step 1, all of the children who are enrolled in the child care center should be listed in the first box. If the child is categorically eligible, such as a foster child, migrant, runaway, homeless, or Head Start, this would be indicated by checking off one of the boxes to the right and would automatically qualify this child for free meals. Please note that only the children designated on the application as participating in an other source of categorical eligibility, such as foster, migrant, runaway, homeless, or Head Start, may receive free meal benefits. Children with these other sources of categorical eligibility are considered to be a household of one, and their eligibility does not automatically transfer to children in the household. If you receive an application with one categorically eligible child, such as a foster child, and that application has additional children listed, the additional children must have their eligibility determined by an alternate way, such as income, SNAP letter, etc. In addition, if there is only one categorically eligible child listed and no other children are listed, you can skip step 2 and 3 of this application. If your participant was not found to be categorically eligible in step 1, then you would move on to step 2. This question asks if any household members currently participate in one or more of the following assistance programs: SNAP, TANF, or FDPIR. In Rhode Island, we only see SNAP and TANF, also known as RI Works. The household member should list their case number from the program they are receiving assistance from here. Household members should receive a case number from the agency that administers the benefit. In Rhode Island, this is generally DHS, or Department of Human Services. Case numbers in Rhode Island do not necessarily follow a specific format, so generally any number is considered acceptable other than the 16-digit number listed on the EBT card, as possession of this card does not necessarily mean that you are still receiving SNAP benefits. If this step is completed and is correct, the household can skip the next section, step 3. If categorical eligibility was not indicated by the household in the previous sections, then the determination will be based on income and household size in step 3 of the meal benefit application. In step 3A, you would list the child's income if any is received. Please note that you do not need to include anything that is infrequent, such as babysitting, mowing the lawn, etc. This is meant for a child that is receiving regular income, such as from a job, Social Security, or from a trust fund. In Section 3B, all household members, including children and the person completing the application not listed in Step 1, should be listed even if they do not receive any income. To the right is their earnings from work with frequencies listed as weekly, or 52 times a year, bi-weekly, 26 times a year, monthly, 12 times a year, and twice monthly, 24 times a year. Please note that the frequency must be indicated, and if missing, is considered an incomplete application and should be returned to the parent for completion. You cannot assume the frequency of the household members. The next section is for welfare, child support, alimony, and again the frequency should be listed. The last section is for pensions, retirement, Social Security, SSI, VA benefits, and including the frequency also. If there is no income reported for any member of the household, you have to accept the application as face value and that there is no income for that household member or the household. If a parent declines to report any income, they cannot be forced to report any, and the application would be considered incomplete and placed in the denied or paid category. The total number of household members, including the children and adults, should match the number of household members listed in Step 1 and Step 3. We often see that the number of household members listed versus the total that is entered does not match. If the numbers do not match, you should contact the household to get an understanding on the discrepancies. Remember, if you, the sponsor, make any changes to this number after you have contacted the household, these changes must be initialed and dated in pen. Lastly, if the determination is income-based, then the last 4 digits of the Social Security number of the adult household member completing the application should be included. If the household member does not have a Social Security number, they should check off no Social Security number. If the application is income-based and both the last 4 of the Social are missing or the no Social Security is not checked off, the application is considered incomplete. Some participants may not want to disclose their last 4 Social Security number digits. If this is the case, you may try to reassure them that no one besides key CACFP staff at your organization and RIDE reviewers will look at this information. The information will remain confidential and is not shared with any other persons or organizations. We will be referring back to this section later on in the PowerPoint when we explain how to calculate incomes for eligibility determinations. When you are determining eligibility based on income, if you have participants who have questions, you can refer them to the chart on the back of the application, which gives you examples of what you should accept as acceptable income. This includes sources of income for children as well as adults. When determining the eligibility of participants, sponsors can refer to the Eligibility for School Meals Determining and Verifying Eligibility Handbook. This handbook is updated and released on a regular basis, so check the RIDE or USDA website for the most current version. The sections that are listed above are the sections that apply to the CACFP. You will be able to find further examples of what to accept as a form of income, determining household composition, etc. The last step to be completed by the household is Step 4. Please be sure that the application is signed and dated by the adult household member completing the application. If this step is skipped, this application would be considered incomplete and would have to be returned to the household for completion. The optional section listed on the back side of the meal benefit application asks for the children's ethnic and racial identification and does not affect the eligibility determination of any participants. Participants who fill this section out should first mark their ethnic identity, which will fall into only one of the two options. After that, the participant should mark one or more of the racial identities. Please note that this section is optional and you cannot require household members to complete it. In addition, on the back side of the application, you will find the non-discrimination statement. This statement is required on the application and cannot be removed under any circumstances. The last section of the application labeled "Do Not Fill Out" is for use of the sponsor only. This is where the sponsor will make the determination of the meal benefit application. If a participant indicates categorical eligibility by indicating that they have a case number in Step 1 and also have a valid signature and date in Step 4, you may determine the meal benefit application as free, check off the categorical eligibility option, and check off the eligibility as free. Make sure to sign your name on the determining official's signature line and include the date the determination was approved. Do not backdate this to match the date the participant completed their application. You must sign and date this section in order for the application to be considered complete and current. When we are reviewing your organization's meal benefit applications, we will use your approval date for the 12-month time frame that the application is valid for. If there is no date listed, then we have no way to validate if the meal benefit application is current and will be considered incomplete. This may result in your organization being required to return funds to RIDE. Lastly, the confirming official and follow-up official signature only needs to be completed if you are a pricing program. However, if you have internal controls within your organization where a second person rechecks the meal benefit determination, you are more than welcome to use one of these boxes. Now that we have reviewed how to complete the meal benefit application, we will review how to make an eligibility determination based on the information that was provided. For applicants who are not categorically eligible, an eligibility determination must be based on income, and this can only be done in one of two ways: using the Income Eligibility Guidelines or the Income Eligibility Calculator found on the CNP Connect system. For this method of determination, you will need to refer to Step 3 of the meal benefit application as well as the current Income Eligibility Guidelines. You will first need to note how many people are in the household. And you can see in this example that we have 3 people listed. Next, you will need to determine an income frequency to use. If all of the incomes listed are received at the same frequency, then the income amounts can simply be added together for a single total dollar value. However, if multiple frequencies are listed, you will need to annualize all of the incomes to get a total yearly income for the household. Remember to properly annualize incomes using the correct factor. For the example on this slide, you can see that this household has 3 different income frequencies listed: weekly, monthly, and biweekly. In order to determine the income for the household, we will need to annualize each of these incomes. Please note that all information used to make a determination must be reflected on the application. Frequencies are required as part of the income information. If a frequency is missing, the sponsor cannot guess or assume the frequency. You should follow up with the participant to gather this information and then document it accordingly on the application. In this chart, we can see what factors we will need to multiply the incomes by in order to annualize them. From the prior slide, we know that the 3 incomes are as follows: $300 per week, $1,000 per month, and the child's income of $100 every 2 weeks. Based on the math above, we have calculated that the total annual household income is $30,200 per year. This annual number is what we will use to make our determination. Now that we know that the annual household income is $30,200 and the household number is 3, we will need to find out where the income falls within the income guidelines. To determine this, we should first look to the left-hand column of the income eligibility guidelines titled Household Size to find the number 3. We will also need to find the free and reduced income guidelines for annual frequency that corresponds to a household size of 3, which can be found in the second and third columns. For a household size of 3 to be determined as free, the annual income must be $27,729 per year or less. Based on this household annual income, they cannot be determined as free. Looking to the annual income guidelines for reduced meals, a household size of 3 must make $39,461 a year to be determined as reduced. The Garcia family makes $30,200 per year, so their determination would be reduced. Please be reminded that these income eligibility guidelines are updated every year, so you should always make sure that you are using the correct version. Also remember, these guidelines should not be given out to participants. Instead, they should receive the household letter that contains the reduced guidelines. Now that you have made an eligibility determination, you would complete the For Official Use section of the meal benefit application. Using the same example, we would expect to see the household income listed on the total income line, along with the frequency that was used to make the determination. You should also list the household size on the appropriate line, as well as checking off the corresponding determination. As previously mentioned, with the Official Use Only categorically eligible slide, the person from your organization making the determination should sign and record the date that the determination was made. An alternate way to make an income-based eligibility determination would be to use RIDE's Income Eligibility Calculator. You do not need access to RIDE's CNP Connect in order to use the eligibility calculator. Before you log into the system, you can click on the yellow tab labeled Income Eligibility Calculator, circled in red. Once you click on the Income Eligibility Calculator tab, a new window should open on your browser that displays this picture. From here, you will enter the number of household members with income in the first box and the number of household members without income in the second box. For the purpose of the example we have been using, we would enter the numbers 3 and 0 respectively. After entering the appropriate household numbers, you will be prompted to enter the household income for each household member listed in the previous step based on the type and frequency. Please note the legend, circled in red on this slide, which is used to choose the correct frequency. This feature automatically uses the most current version of the income eligibility guidelines and annualizes the total household income so that there is no need to do math ahead of time. The income eligibility calculator should look like this once all the income and corresponding frequencies have been entered. The income for each person in the household should be entered into each separate line. After you have inputted the information, click the Determine button to receive an annualized total household income and determination. Once you have filled out all of the required information and click the Determine button at the bottom of the window, you will see the total income and determination, which is circled in red on this slide. From here, you can either transfer this information by hand onto the Official Use Only section of the meal benefit application, or alternatively, you can print this page out and attach it to the corresponding meal benefit application. Now we will move on to reporting your enrollment numbers once you have determined the eligibility for all your participants. On this slide, we see the same image from the beginning of our presentation regarding where to enter your enrollment numbers for your monthly claim for reimbursement. The number that is included in the free, reduced, and paid, which is the red box, should be representative of the total number of participants enrolled in CACFP that attended the center for at least one day during the claim month and should vary each month. This means that participants do not need to have been served a meal in order to be included in the enrollment numbers. They just needed to have attended during the claim month and have been enrolled in the program. If a center is for-profit, Title 19 or 20, which is the orange box above, the number of participants that receive DHS or Medicaid benefits must also be reported on a monthly basis. To continue on with reporting your enrollment numbers, please know that for-profit centers must have a combined free and reduced enrollment of 25% or more of the total enrollment or license capacity, whichever is less, or The total number of participants receiving Title 19 or 20 benefits must be over 25% of the total enrollment or license capacity. Although not required, most sponsors choose to maintain a monthly roster which includes each participant's eligibility status for all participants that attended during the month. Please note, this best practice is highly recommended by RIDE, but ultimately is not required. As we mentioned earlier, your enrollment numbers must be reported correctly and always be supported with acceptable documentation. If RIDE determines during a program review that enrollment numbers were entered incorrectly for the review month, the sponsor will be financially responsible for any discrepancies. Throughout this presentation, we have already mentioned some of the record-keeping requirements associated with meal benefit applications. To remind you, they are as follows. The meal benefit application, household letter, WIC letter, and days, meals, and time and care form must be distributed to all households annually in the most current version. Applications contain sensitive information and must be kept confidential and should never be shared with other people or organizations. Applications are valid 12 months from the date of which the determining official of your organization signs the form. Now for record-keeping requirements that we have not yet discussed. Documentation related to that CACFP, including meal benefit applications, need to be maintained for 3 years plus the current year. Additionally, sponsors cannot require a household to fill out and return a meal benefit application. If a household does not wish to complete and return an application, you must automatically categorize them as paid. Lastly, if your organization chooses to utilize a roster, it is recommended that you maintain them by site if you have more than one. Additionally, applications should not be placed in each individual child's folder. Rather, it is easier if they are organized alphabetically, separated by determination, with an additional file for those who have been withdrawn. This concludes today's webinar. If you have any questions or would like to know any more about the CACFP, please contact the email address above or visit our website for more information.